Imagine waking up to something crispy, golden, and perfectly sweet, poured into a bowl with cold milk, creating that satisfying sound. It feels simple, innocent, comforting. For millions of children around the world, breakfast cereal means Saturday mornings, cartoon time, and pure joy. It's just food, right? Something parents buy to feed their kids quickly before school. Nothing strange about that. But what if someone told you that the man who invented cornflakes did it to stop children from certain natural behaviors? What if breakfast cereal was never designed to feed you, but to control you? Behind that colorful box and that friendly mascot lies one of the strangest stories in American history: religious obsession, medical torture, and a war against human pleasure that somehow ended up on your kitchen table. How did a weapon against desire become the most common breakfast in the world? This video is about how breakfast cereal was born inside a religious movement that believed food could control your thoughts, your body, and your desires. It's about doctors who performed surgeries on children to stop natural urges, and how that insanity became a billion-dollar industry. Why do we eat cereal every morning? The doctor who hated pleasure. In 1876, a young doctor named John Harvey Kellogg took control of a health resort in Battle Creek, Michigan. It was called the Battle Creek Sanitarium, and it promised to cure every disease through diet, exercise, and discipline. Kellogg was a Seventh-day Adventist, a Christian sect that believed the second coming of Christ was near, and that humanity needed to purify itself before that moment arrived. For Kellogg, purification meant one thing above all: destroying physical desire. He believed that pleasure, even thoughts about it, poisoned the body and the soul. He never consummated his own marriage. He slept in a separate bed from his wife for 40 years. He adopted all his children because he refused to create them through intimate relations. And he spent his entire medical career searching for ways to stop other people from feeling what he considered the most dangerous human impulse: physical attraction and its expression. Kellogg wasn't just philosophically opposed to human intimacy. He was obsessed with preventing it. He wrote books, gave lectures, and created medical protocols focused entirely on stopping what he called the solitary vice. He believed it caused insanity, blindness, cancer, and early death. He believed children who engaged in this behavior would grow into criminals, lunatics, or moral failures. And he believed the solution was total control over the body, starting with food. At his sanitarium, patients ate no meat, no spices, no sugar, no coffee, no alcohol. Blandness was medicine. Flavor was sin. Kellogg developed grain-based foods designed to calm the body, weaken physical energy, and suppress natural urges. One of those foods was a tasteless, crunchy flake made from corn. It wasn't delicious. It wasn't fun. It was a tool designed to control human nature. And the patients had no idea they were part of an experiment in behavioral modification through diet. The war against the body. Inside the Battle Creek Sanitarium, Kellogg didn't just control what people ate. He controlled how they moved, how they slept, and what happened to their bodies. His methods were extreme, invasive, and often brutal. He believed that if food alone couldn't stop natural urges, then medicine had to intervene directly. His treatments went far beyond diet and crossed into territory that modern medicine would classify as abuse. For boys suspected of certain behaviors, Kellogg recommended procedures without anesthesia. He wrote that the pain would create a lasting memory, and that memory would stop the behavior. For girls, he applied caustic chemicals to sensitive areas to destroy sensation permanently. He didn't see this as cruelty. He saw it as healing. He genuinely believed he was saving children from moral destruction and physical ruin. His sanitarium became famous across America. Wealthy patients traveled to Battle Creek to experience his treatments: cold water enemas, electrical stimulation, extreme fasting, and hours of exercise under strict supervision. They paid high prices for the privilege of being controlled, and many of them left believing they had been cured of diseases they never actually had. The sanitarium was theater as much as medicine, a performance of purity that rich Americans desperately wanted to believe in. Kellogg's cornflakes were part of this system. Patients ate them every morning, not because they tasted good, but because Kellogg told them bland food would calm their animal instincts. The flakes had no sugar, no salt, no flavor. They were as joyless as the philosophy behind them, but they worked as a marketing tool because people associated the sanitarium with health, science, and success. Eating Kellogg's cereal meant you were modern, disciplined, and morally pure. What Kellogg didn't realize was that his younger brother, Will Keith Kellogg, was watching everything. And Will had a very different vision. He didn't care about purity or moral crusades. He cared about money. And he saw that people would eat cereal if it actually tasted good. The brother who sold the cure. Will Keith Kellogg worked for his older brother for 25 years. He managed the sanitarium's business operations, handled finances, and watched wealthy patients pay for treatments that didn't work. He also watched his brother's food experiments and realized something important. The cereal had commercial potential, not as medicine, not as moral control, but as a product that ordinary people could buy and eat at home. In 1906, after years of frustration working under his brother's authoritarian control, Will Keith Kellogg broke away and founded his own company, the Battle Creek Toasted Cornflake Company. He did something his brother refused to do. He added sugar. He made the flakes sweet, crunchy, and pleasant to eat. He advertised them as a convenient modern breakfast for busy families. He removed all references to desire suppression, purity, or religious discipline. He turned a tool of repression into a mass-market product. John Harvey Kellogg was furious. He sued his brother for using the family name. He accused him of corrupting the original purpose of the cereal and betraying the mission of the sanitarium. The legal battle lasted years and destroyed what remained of their relationship. But Will won the case and won the market. By 1920, his company was selling millions of boxes per year. The product designed to kill pleasure had become pleasurable. At the same time, another former patient of the Battle Creek Sanitarium was building his own cereal empire. His name was Charles William Post. He had spent months at Kellogg's Sanitarium suffering through bland diets and strange treatments. He left convinced that health food could sell, if marketed correctly. He created grape nuts and Post Toasties, filled them with sugar, and advertised them as energy boosters for modern Americans. He became a millionaire within a decade. The competition between Kellogg and Post turned Battle Creek, Michigan, into the cereal capital of America. Dozens of smaller companies copied their formulas, trying to capture a piece of the growing market. They all followed the same strategy. Take a grain-based food designed for moral control, add sweetness, advertise it as progress and convenience, and sell it to families who had no idea where it came from or what it was originally meant to do. From repression to sugar rush. By the 1950s, breakfast cereal had completely severed its connection to religion and behavioral control. The companies didn't talk about John Harvey Kellogg anymore. They didn't mention purity discipline, or the dangers of natural human behavior. Instead, they talked about vitamins, energy, and convenience. But most importantly, they talked to children. Cereal companies realized that if they could make children want their product, parents would buy it. So they created cartoon mascots, Tony the Tiger, Toucan Sam, the Trix Rabbit. They added bright colors, sugar content as high as 40%, and toys inside the box. They turned breakfast into entertainment. And they advertised relentlessly on Saturday morning television when children watched alone without parental supervision. The food that John Harvey Kellogg designed to suppress pleasure became one of the most pleasure-focused products in the American supermarket. The Bland Flakes became Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms, and Cookie Crisp. The philosophy of control became the philosophy of indulgence, and no one questioned it. Because cereal had always been breakfast, right? It had always been normal. The origin story had been completely erased from public memory. By the 2000s, the global breakfast cereal industry was worth over $30 billion per year. Kellogg's, Post, and General Mills dominated the market. They fought regulatory battles over sugar content, health claims, and advertising to children. Public health advocates accused them of contributing to childhood obesity and dental problems. But they never stopped selling, and they never told the full story of where their products came from. The marketing had become so effective that multiple generations grew up believing cereal was simply food, not a product born from a doctor's obsession with controlling human bodies. Parents fed it to their children without knowing that the man who invented it believed childhood pleasure was a disease that needed to be cured through diet and, when necessary, surgery. The truth they never told. Today, the legacy of John Harvey Kellogg is almost invisible. His sanitarium closed in 1942. His books went out of print. His ideas about human behavior were discredited by modern medicine and psychology. But his cereal survived, transformed, sweetened, and sold to billions of people who have no idea they're eating the remnants of a religious war against the human body. Walk into any supermarket in the world and you'll find entire aisles dedicated to breakfast cereal. Bright boxes with smiling mascots promising energy, health, and happiness. The packaging never mentions Battle Creek, Michigan. It never mentions the sanitarium or the treatments or the philosophy behind the product. The companies moved on. They hired new marketers, created new mascots, and built new narratives around convenience and childhood joy. But the original purpose remains embedded in the product's DNA. The grain base, the focus on breakfast, the claim to health benefits. All of it traces back to a man who believed food could control behavior. A man who tortured children in the name of purity. A man whose vision of human nature was so distorted that he spent his entire life fighting against pleasure itself. Most people will never know this story. They'll pour cereal into a bowl, add milk, and never think about where it came from. And maybe that's the final victory of the cereal industry. They made the product so normal, so mundane, so everyday, that no one asks questions anymore. The dark history became invisible, and invisibility is the most effective form of erasure. Every morning, millions of people pour cereal into a bowl and never think about where it came from. They don't think about the doctor who believed pleasure was poison, or the patients who suffered through his experiments, or the brother who turned repression into profit. Cereal became normal, and when something becomes normal, its history disappears. If this video made you rethink something you thought was simple, it's because research like this takes time, effort, and a lot of digging into forgotten archives. If you found it valuable, consider liking or subscribing. It helps more than you think. Thanks for watching.